The Call Room Road to Records is powered by HOKA. I've had the absolute ride of a lifetime releasing these Call Room series around track season, cross-country season, and I've always been honored that HOKA comes on and sponsors them, helps me produce the best possible episodes that I can. This year's edition of the Call Room, I'm so excited about. It's leading into the 2025 edition of the HOKA Festival of Miles, held June 5th in St. Louis, Missouri. This year, the races are literally going to be bigger and better than ever. The fields that have already been announced are absolutely remarkable, and HOKA is there every step of the way. I cannot wait to talk to both the top boys and the top girl contenders as they journey to St. Louis to chase records, to chase history. It's going to be an absolute blast, and I can't wait for this podcast series leading into the historic event that is the HOKA Festival of Miles meet. If you're in the midst of your track season, I highly recommend checking out HOKA's race day products. Join HOKA's next generation of fast family this year at the HOKA Festival of Miles, the Summer Mile Club, and the Foot Locker Cross Country National Championships. Enjoy today's episode of the Call Room Road to Records, powered by HOKA.
We want to give every kid who steps on our track the ability to run their fastest. It doesn't always happen, but we feel like the environment, being loud and having the fan engagement, having the music going, being at night when the conditions are perfect and providing a pacer at the front is the ideal setup.
That was Tim Cornell today on today's episode of the Call Room Road to Records as we inch ever closer to the 2025 HOKA Festival of Miles meet. I've known Tim for a little over 2 years now. He's an absolute stud. He's my favorite meet director in the country, and he is a big part and reason behind why the Festival of Miles meet is what it is, why it's so successful, why the fields you see assembled are what they are. In today's conversation, I break it all down with Tim, the 2025 field, the evolution of the meet, his role in it, the Festival of Miles team at large, them being a nonprofit, the Athlete in Need program, and all the excitement around this year's event. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. You're going to get a deep dive into the behind the scenes and inner workings of putting on one of the most unique as well as one of the best track meets in the entire world. If you enjoy it, share it with a friend, a family member, a teammate, someone who you think would find value and benefit from it. Give us a 5-star review. It really helps us, takes 5 seconds. And also make sure you are following or subscribe to the podcast so you never miss another episode. And with all those notes aside, enjoy my conversation with the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Meet Director himself, Tim Cornell. Tim Cornell, welcome to the Running Effect podcast. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm great, Dominic. Thanks for having me.
I don't know if it's the Running Effect or if it's the Call Room Road to Records. I think a mix and a mash of both. So excited to have you on as the meet director for the HOKA Festival of Miles. Obviously, This meet has taken my heart over. I've said this to a lot of the athletes, but I've been to the NCAA outdoor meet. I've been to the U.S. Outdoor Championships when it was a world qualifier. I've even been to the U.S. Olympic trials, and I can confidently say that none of them come in comparison to the Festival of Miles. And I have my reasons for that, but I'm curious for you, why do you think this meet is so special?
Well, I think a lot of it boils down to just who we are as an organization. So we're a short form track and field meet. At the Festival of Miles is short compared to other track meets. And so we're able to do things that other meets aren't capable of doing. We limit ourselves to just running the mile. And then, behind that, we just have a great team that helps create an amazing environment. It starts with our board members. We're a not-for-profit. And so our board puts a ton of time and effort into creating really special moments. And then HOKA comes in and does their thing to make it awesome and beautiful and create a great racing environment for the athletes. So all of those things just kind of come together, the mission and the history and the brand opportunity to create a really special night of track and field.
How busy is the phone these days? How many calls, how many text messages?
It's a little bit of a lull right now, to be honest. Like we did some of our early admissions a couple of weeks ago, and then we're in a bit of a holding pattern until our entry deadline on May 31st. So things will really start heating up in the days leading up to it. There are some other meets that kids will run fast at over the weekend. So usually Monday, Tuesday, I'm answering a lot of questions from coaches and from athletes on where they stand. But we started sending out update emails to everybody who's entered, which has really helped. So they kind of know where the cutoffs are, so that they're traveling. And we felt like that was important because we really are a national meet. We started as a very local St. Louis organization. Um, with the quality of races that we had, it became regional. And then when HOKA stepped on board, we really became a national level meet. So we have people traveling from all over the country and from internationally to race. And we wanted to communicate with them effectively so that they can make travel plans if they were going to qualify.
I believe you've been the meet director since 2021. That lines up with kind of
Mm-hmm.
the every year a sub four is run. Is this a correlation here? Tim comes on board, sub
Uh,
four start
no,
coming.
it's nothing to do with me. I'm a cog in the wheel. But it's a confluence of a lot of different things. So Grant Fisher was our first high school athlete to break 4 minutes, and I can't even remember what year that happened. But then Reed Brown came a few years later and broke 4. So they were our first two, and that was before HOKA was our title partner. And then HOKA came on board for that 2021 year. And with the addition of just the communication that was needed with HOKA and with the expected influx of athletes from that, I became the meet director. And so, we have more resources now than we've ever had. We have a little bit of budget to fly a couple of kids in. And it's helped for the sub 4 opportunities and matching on the girls side for those national record opportunities, the sub 4:30 opportunities, wherever you want to put the equivalent of sub 4 minutes.
For you personally, what was the first year that you heard of Festival of Miles, and what was your first impression of the meet? And then draw that comparison to actually joining the team years later in 2021.
Yeah, so I've known about Festival of Miles since the beginning. I grew up in Columbia, Missouri, which is just down the road from St. Louis, and I went to the University of Missouri, which is in Columbia. So I didn't get very far from high school, but I knew Ben Rosario and I knew Matt Helbig and the team that started Festival of Miles, along with Carter Snow, who was the meet director before me. So I knew about it. I had a teammate who raced in the first one, and I came and watched one of my wife's teammates run in the women's 800. So I think that was 2009 or 10. So it was a long time ago. But, watching it grow and providing a really cool racing opportunity for St. Louis was amazing. And so when they were talking about hiring a race director or having somebody take over for Carter, Carter's a wonderful human being. He's very high up in one of the school districts in St. Louis now. And so his obligations just kind of went haywire at the right time that I was looking to get involved with Festival of Miles. So, that's just what it was. But the bones of the organization were in great shape. Katie Sutton's our board president. She does a ton for just marketing the organization and the race itself. And then every board member has a role that they play leading up to race day and then on race day itself. So we're in great shape whether I'm here or not.
Drawing the contrast between that 2009 experience and 2024, which is the most recent reference point, how crazy is it to see what the meet has evolved into?
The cool thing is that the heart and the soul of the meet are exactly the same. So the turnout was amazing when I first came and watched, and it's still the same crowd base. So you're looking at 3,000 to 4,000 people every single year, which is a ton for a track meet, especially for a high school track meet. And so they come out, and if you haven't been to our stadium before, it's perfectly sized for that number of people. So, if you had 4,000 people in a football stadium, it would feel small. We have 4,000 people in a high school track stadium, a really nice high school track stadium, and it feels just packed, and the energy is big, and the volume is loud, and so that makes it fun. But there are definitely there's some things that are cool now that we didn't have back in 2009. We have sparks, and we have lights, and we have a DJ, and all the really fun stuff that keeps folks coming back year over year.
Something I want to ask you about, how much of the specialness of the meet comes down to the location of it? Because this is more of a broad conversation on track and field as a whole, but I know a lot of people with Hayward Field, their gripe with it is you'll never be able to fill it, and so it'll never feel full or exciting. And I think part of what makes this meet special is that there's more people than the attendance
Yeah.
is even capable of bringing in. So do you think Festival of Miles would be the same if it was like in a, I don't know, 20,000 person stadium and half full?
That's a good question. I mean, Eugene is the mecca of track and field in America. So there is something special about that place and racing at that place, whether you have the stadiums full or not. One of the things that I think is cool about Festival of Miles is it's an elite track race in the Midwest, which doesn't happen all the time. And it makes a lot of sense for high school kids because it's a meeting ground. So if you live on the West Coast or if you live on the East Coast, if you live north, south, we're smack dab in the middle, almost perfectly geographically. So you can get to us. And so maybe it's a compromise. Maybe it's like, hey, I'll go race the East Coast guys if I'm a West Coast guy in St. Louis instead of somebody having to fly all the way across the country. But there's definitely something about Sluice track and the stadium that creates ambiance for the folks that we have. And maybe the geography plays into it as well. And we're just perfectly spaced for everybody to come and say, hey, and run a little track with us.
What, when you've been at the meet, is the farthest someone has ever traveled to watch the meet, not racing it?
To watch the
Yeah,
meet or
to
to
watch it, like be a
um,
fan. Have you heard any crazy story?
oh gosh yeah, we have a kid. He was a foreign exchange student at Parkway, one of the local school districts, and he volunteered. He moved back to England. And his name is Connell, and he comes back every year for Festival Miles and volunteers. So he's a cool kid. I've met him a couple of times. His coach has been heavily involved. The coach's son was a really good runner in high school. He was a Missouri State cross country champion way back in the day, in the early 2000s, and now the dad's still involved, and he coached Connell, and Connell comes back.
It's
So I
crazy.
don't like. The hard part is I am so busy on race night. I don't get to talk to as many people as I would love to, but I do know that Connell probably holds the record for coming the farthest
My
to
gosh.
see the races.
England is crazy, but that just shows how special it
Yeah,
is if you're willing to make that hike.
yeah, it's
So you mentioned, it being a national meet in terms of like everyone around the country comes to it. But I think we've talked about this
mhm,
before in person. Something that makes Festival of Miles super unique is that it's not a Brooks PR, it's not a New Balance or a Nike where you're going to get a decent number of kids, but they're going to jog around half the race and then someone's going to kick. This meet is
yeah.
you come here to run fast, and we're not handing out national titles, we're handing out PRs. What's kind of your perspective
Mhm,
on how that makes the meet special and how the ethos of the meet is not to make it like this national meet? It's one distance, as you
mhm.
said, kind of two with some eights, and it's about how fast can you run.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So, and that goes back to the history of the meet itself. So, in April, Missouri is a terrible place to run fast. It rains and it's windy and it's a little bit cold. It's awful. Once the calendar turns over to late May, early June, Missouri becomes a really nice place to run. And so, for everybody who grew up in that environment, we all kind of went to the state meet and we ran our fastest time of the year at state because it was one of the few opportunities that we had to run fast. And I think a lot of us left feeling like we had one more shot in us. And so the founders, so Ben and Carter and Katie and everybody who started the original Festival of Miles gave those kids that opportunity. It was for the Missouri kids, and we kind of brought it full circle with Missouri Mile last year, but we said, hey, we're going to give you an opportunity to just run fast because we were frustrated that we didn't get the chance to just go run fast at the end of the year when we were the fittest. And so we think we have the skills to do that now. So we found a track at night and when there was no wind and we set up pacing and the kids came and they did exactly what we thought they were going to do. They ran fast. And so it just grew from there. And that's really what we want to see. We want to give every kid who steps on our track the ability to run their fastest. It doesn't always happen, but we feel like the environment, being loud and having the fan engagement, having the music going, being at night, when the conditions are perfect and providing a pacer at the front is the ideal setup. And it's not new, it's not something that we invented, but we were happy to bring it to the Missouri kids, and we're equally excited to bring it to the nation's high school kids.
I wasn't really following the meet back in 2021, so I'm unsure of who won that year. But I know through talking
Mm-hmm.
to people as well as through studying the meet over the years, 2022 seems like what kind of really put it on the map. Obviously, as you mentioned, Fisher and Reed Brown broke four there, but those were kind of
Mm-hmm.
anomalies in the grand scheme of how long the meet's been around. And then
Sure.
2022, Gary runs a ridiculous time, and Connor, who
Mm-hmm.
is Missouri's finest. The bad boy of running, as I like to call him, breaks it. Same race with two guys in sub four, and that wasn't really seen at that point. And
Sure.
then 2023 really cemented the meet as what it is today. But going back to that
Mm-hmm.
2022 with Gary and Connor, you're 1 year into being a meet director. What was that race like for you, and what was the energy there? And did you have a moment after the meet where you thought, okay, we just did the groundwork for years to come? Like, people are now going to come here.
Yeah, I think in 2021, we were still coming out of the pandemic, and folks were getting comfortable traveling, and the relationship with HOKA was new at the time, so we were all kind of figuring it out. But Connor's a great name to bring up because that relationship with Connor and with his dad Mark were really key to creating the 2022 race. It's at that point we were running more high school kids in the pro races, which is something that we've stepped away from moving forward. But Connor and Gary were fast enough to be in the pro race. Connor had run 4:02 during the indoor season. Gary had already run under 4 minutes by himself, and so we wanted to give him a chance to run faster. And so we talked to Mark, and we said, hey, like what's the best setup for Connor, because he's a Missouri kid and we'd love to do something for him if we can. And then Gary jumped on board too. Um, and in the aftermath, no high school kid. There are so many more high school kids that break four now than there were then, but there had never been two that had broken it in the same race. And so that was the first. And then obviously the next year we jumped to four. But yeah, it definitely did help. I mean, anytime that you put yourself on the map like that, and I think we still have more high school kids breaking four on our track than any other meet in the country, at least historically. And so that's something that's fun to be known for, and really cool that we could give Connor, specifically that opportunity. Gary had done it by himself, and so it was cool to see him race. But to put a Missouri kid under four really was like the culmination of everything that the high school side of the meet had been building towards for years and years and years.
2023 was my first year kind of being a part of it with HOKA on the event marketing side and doing the podcast series with Connor and Simeon. And I feel like that year, I remember talking to Craig extensively. It was like kind of like this year will make or break the event in terms of like, if we get the best kids here this year, it will take care of it for years to come. And that, I think, played
Mm-hmm.
out and was certainly true, because I
Yeah.
remember Connor and Simeon were kind of on the line about doing it, and we got them to come back. And then that we knew was like the key piece to getting all the other top boys. So Jackson Hydish, Rocky Hansen, Tenoda, all those guys. And I'll always remember the tension, and we could talk about this, but the introductions are really cool at the meet, and they're long enough that you're kind of waiting around, and then by the time they all get on the line, your heart's like stopped and you feel like you're racing if you're watching. And then four guys go
Mm-hmm.
under four. What was that race like to you, to see four guys go under four? Because I think in those scenarios, and we can talk about this as it relates to this year,
Mm-hmm.
it could go one way or another. They could go out too fast and they could all burn, or they could all do it. I don't think anyone was expecting four that night, though.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think I was expecting four that night, but we knew it was a possibility. And from a meet director standpoint, I don't really think about how many kids are going to break four. Like, it's not something that I think about on a daily basis. It's obviously cool to see, and I'll remember it forever. Um, but we're more focused on just getting the pieces in place. And so when we were having the early conversations with Connor, who had run in the pro race, and then said, hey, like, we really want you to run in the high school section this year. We feel like it'll be an even better experience for you. And then bringing Simeon in to do the same thing, and talking to Jackson, who had won the high school race the year before. just to say like, hey, like we want to make this experience special for you guys. What can we do that we haven't done before? And that's when we started talking about Eric Sawinski. And at this point, I don't think there had been a pro pacer in a high school field. At least it wasn't part of our process, but we felt like having Eric, and Eric's just an amazing human being. So we can talk about him later. But I called him and said, hey, would you have interest? And he's like, oh man, that's awesome. And he jumped on board straight away. And at the moment, he was the best pacer in the world. He was going from Festival of Miles to Europe to do a Diamond League meet pacing. And so once we had that piece in place, the rest of it just fell right in. So that was, for me, like that was the key moment for making that happen, and just putting the structure in place, and the athletes did the rest.
Flash forwarding to a year later, last year, I think very
Mm-hmm.
stacked field, but maybe less firepower in terms of depth compared to
Yeah.
2023. Griffith still does it. Clay comes brutally close. Super exciting event, super exciting meet. But then you go to this year, and I think from a going in standpoint, there's probably never been so much talk or firepower in terms of just like this race could go any which way in terms of how many
Yeah.
kids break for, how fast they run. What has it been like assembling this field?
Well, like we talked about earlier, kids are coming to us at a higher rate than they ever have, and I think that's a testament to the job that we've done beforehand. And like I said, like we have the most amazing team putting together a high school track meet, that I could imagine. We have an amazing board, and we all really work together to make sure that the experience is as top notch as it can be. And the really cool thing is like none of us really work in track and field year round. We all do other things. So, Katie works in cyber intelligence. She's our board president. Carter, who is the meet director, is probably next in line to be superintendent at one of the school districts. These are all very high achieving people who love track and field and give their time, without thought for personal gain, while they're doing it. So, yeah, that's kind of it. But I got off track
No, you're
there.
good.
So
You're good. Keep going. This
yeah,
year's field, assembling it.
yeah. So we have kids coming to us at a higher rate than ever, but there's obviously communication that needs to happen there. And so the amazing team that I just described we just make sure that the pieces are in place, and that we're communicating to the parents and to the coaches what we can offer, what we can offer to help get them to St. Louis, the timeline that we present, and then the experience that they're going to have once they get to Festival of Miles. And it's a fun race, but other than that, it really is a pretty laid back experience. You've seen it, you've been a part of it. We do a little photo shoot beforehand while the kids are picking up their gear. Other than that, they get to hang out in St. Louis, maybe go for a run in Forest Park, go check out the arch if they want to, and just enjoy their time. We don't ask a lot of them. We really do want them to come to St. Louis, relax, enjoy the time that they're here, and get ready to run fast in whatever way gets them prepared the best.
I know you were at Foot Locker. You were talking to some athletes there with Katie and some other members of the team. At that point, I don't think anyone in this class had broken four. And then you flash forward to indoor season. Owen runs 356. Josiah runs 357. Taven runs 359. Very early outdoors. Tommy breaks four, who was right on the
Mm-hmm.
cusp last year. So I was excited to see
Yeah.
that. When you're, I'm not sure how closely you follow the sport, but I'm sure you're hearing some of the stuff. What was your perspective as sort of the indoor season started to present itself and you thought kids are already breaking it? This is going to be an
Yeah.
exciting year.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun to think about. Honestly, like I usually take the fall off from looking at times. Like I loved being at Foot Locker, and that was mostly just for exposure. We talked to parents. We were there, and we didn't want to get in the way because it's right before a national championship cross country race. Like, we're hanging out by the pool and just doing our thing. It was cool. I got to bring my 10-year-old son, and so we played in the pool and we played ping pong and had all that stuff. And then we had conversations about Festival of Miles when people people were there, and we had a little parent meet and greet. And so that was fun. But coming out of cross country, you have those new relationships, and then you see the time start to pop, and that's when we start to reach out to parents and to coaches and find contact information to see if they'd be interested and to see if it's a good fit. I was a college coach for a handful of years, and so I really do see it as I see it as a relationship. It's a much shorter term relationship than what you would have in college. Like, we're not going to see you every day in the way that you're going to practice and with a team, but we want athletes to come and feel like they're well cared for while they're with us. And that's why we do the little things. We try and make athlete pickup as convenient and easy as possible. We offer a shuttle from the airport to the hotel, just so, whether they're traveling alone or with a parent, they're taken care of, and it makes racing as easy as possible. But yeah, like Katie and I nerd out on all the times, on the boys' times when they break 4 minutes, on the girls' times when Jane runs, 4:26 and smashes a national record. Like, we love seeing that. And, we want them to come and race with us because in our heart, we feel like we do as good a job as anybody of putting on a track meet for the athletes.
Tim, we've talked about the boys. Absolute
Yes.
disgrace on my end not bringing up the 2024 girls edition of the Festival of Miles, both high school and pro. Take me through what happened,
Mm-hmm.
the listener, through what happened, and what was your perspective on that? Because I think a lot of times the boys' side has gotten a lot more. It's hard because, like you said early on in this conversation, it's unsure of what's the equivalent. Is it 4:30? Is it something else? There's something about the
Yeah.
allure of the 4 minute mile. Last year, I think I don't even think debatably. I think last year from the girls' side was more exciting than the guys' side with what ended up
Mm-hmm.
happening. And I don't think anyone saw that coming in the girls' high school mile race. She
Yeah,
didn't
well,
see it
there
coming.
were a couple of people. Yeah, the coaches knew it was coming. Allie's coach knew that she was ready to run fast, and he and I had conversations beforehand just to make sure that pacing was dialed in. But taking a step back, we had the big year for the boys in 2023, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't just known as a boys only meet, where you come to break 4 minutes. And so we put a lot of time and a lot of effort into making sure that we reached out to all the top girls and to let them know, like, hey, like, we want you to have the same experience. And it worked great. Sadie ended up coming and running 4:28. Allie ran 4:30 in back-to-back races, and for us, that was the highlight of the meet. Anytime that you set up a meet where a national record is broken, it's difficult to top. So we were glad that the planning and the emphasis that we put on the girls ended up working out in the way that it did. It was a perfect complement to 2023. Like, they're both amazing accomplishments, and for us, they complemented each other well and going back to back. So hopefully, I think every year it's going to ebb and flow. There are going to be strong years for the boys and strong years for the girls. But hopefully it's more even now than it's ever been, because we just like seeing fast kids run at our track. So we don't care if it's boys or girls. We just want kids to come run and have fun. So yeah, it was emphasis. We made it happen, and we were super glad that it did.
Sadie runs fast last year, does what you said she did. I'm sure what's going through your
Mm-hmm.
mind is, okay, how do we bring her back for her senior year? Because she's probably
Right.
going to get more fit. And two, as the year progresses, I'm sure it's like, who's the equivalent that can make this race fast? Jane was
Yeah.
good. I've talked to Jane extensively on the podcast throughout the years. She has turned into something out of this world over the last 6 months, winning
Yeah, that's true.
NXN off of barely no running and doing so in a course record on debatably one of the worst weather days. And then going on to run, 4:26. I don't know what she's done in the 2 mile, something ridiculous. And then 14:57 outdoors in the 5K, which is
Yeah.
tapping into literally one of the best in America at any age group. How excited are you for that matchup? And what do you think that will do from the perspective of elevating the high school girls mile?
Oh, I mean, I think it's huge. Jane and family were very gracious in considering Festival Miles early on and committing early on. And, honestly, like they committed before I'd even reached out to Sadie, to see if she had interest in coming back. And then knowing that Jane wanted to run in the high school championship section, Sadie said that she would be up for that as well. And it's going to be an amazing race between two immensely talented athletes. We've been fans of Jane for a couple of years now. It's the first time that we've been able to get her to St. Louis to race, but we're excited that it's happening. And I couldn't think of a better girls race to happen. So it's going to be really fun.
I don't know if this is spilling too much tea, but who's pacing and what's the pacing set for? Have you had early
Yeah,
conversation
no,
about
we've
that?
we've already announced pacers. So Gina McNamara is our women's championship pacer. Gina's an All-American from Michigan, so she's the Maltese national record holder in many different events, but most importantly the 800. So she's run about 2:02 for 800 meters. So she'll be tasked with staying in front of Jane and Sadie for at least 1,000 to make sure that they're on pace. This is about the time that we circle back with the top athletes to see kind of where their heads at in terms of what they want to run. But in knowing both of them, I'm sure that they're going to want to run a little bit faster than Jane's 4:26 record. So that's where pacing will be set somewhere in the 4:25 range, unless they feel like they can go faster. And that's the benefit of having a pro pacer on the line. They can do it if it's asked. On the boy side, I know you talked to Josiah the other day, and in talking to those guys, they're very intent on qualifying for USA's. So the auto qualifier is 3:37. We do have a 1,500-meter line that we added for the pros years ago, and we've got a timer sitting there. So it'd be silly to have him only time two races when there are athletes who are running record pace. So honestly, you could set multiple records in one race at Festival Miles if you ran fast enough. And so yeah, 3:37 for 1,500 meters is the time that they want to run. I know that Josiah's talked about running 3:55, so those two line up pretty well. Derek Holdsworth is the pacer there. Derek's a 1:45 half miler. He paced the Millrose Games last year. He's wonderful. He's dedicated, and he's experienced. So those are the things that you like hearing out of a pacer, and they're both just really gracious people. We're right in the middle of the pros season, so every opportunity that they have is precious. So giving up one of those opportunities to come down and be a part of our meet is really appreciated. As someone who's in charge of the race, I can't describe how good it makes you feel to feel like you're in good hands. You have kids, like you have other people's kids that are coming in to put it all on the line, and you want the kids to feel like they're well taken care of. You want the parents to feel like they're given a great opportunity. And so when you have people who are as accomplished as Gina and Derek leading those fields, it makes you feel really good.
I could have this off, but I think 3:37.15 flat is a approximate mile equivalent of 3:54.4. If that time
Mhm.
gets run, how crazy would that be to you?
I mean, it'd be great. But like, I mean, you've seen the times that kids are running these days. Like, it would be amazing. It wouldn't surprise me. The Josiah and Tavon and all those guys are supremely talented. And so I kind of turn my brain off to what I think that they're possibly capable of doing, and just listen, to the kids and listen to the coaches and say, hey, this is their goal. This is their race. What can we do to help get them there? And if it's, lowering pacing a couple of ticks, then it's something that we're set up to do.
I've had this conversation with Olin Hacker a few weeks ago. What's your take? And I know you probably want to be loose in some of these predictions, but will the high school boys field finally be faster than the men's pro field this year?
Oh no, I don't think that this is the year. Not for lack of trying, but we've got some really good men's milers coming in this year. We increased our prize money, so we're offering $5,000 for the win now, which is a really good amount. Like we're so thrilled that we can do that. It's so important for these pros. Like, it really is a lifeline for a lot of them to keep competing. And as somebody, whose time is over as a runner, like anything that we can do to support them financially, like we want to do. So if we have the money to put up more for prize, then then that's amazing. And we're gonna do it every time. But we also applied for World Athletics status. So there are a series of different levels that you can be with World Athletics in terms of your meet status that awards different points. And we're a challenger race this year, which is really the only level that we can be as a small meet. The other levels, bronze, silver, gold, require you to have more professional events, which isn't in our mission, but those points are critical for national team qualifying, whether you're running for Team USA or if you're running for somebody else. But Craig Ingles is coming over to race. Eric Holt is coming over to race. Olin obviously will be at the front. Ahmed Mohammed will be there as well. And then I think Isaac Updike is the other Team USA member that has jumped on board. And then Brandon Miller is an Olympic 800-meter runner. He's from St. Louis. He ran Festival of Miles as a youth. He set the national record for the mile while at Festival of Miles when in junior high, and so he's coming back. It's a great field. We're stoked for that race. So some years maybe it could happen. I don't think about it too much, but I think those guys are ready to roll, and I think they're going to run really fast.
Other quick prediction for you. We talked about this last year. Will Heat 2 of the boys' high school mile break 4?
Oh, I don't know. It kind of depends who ends up in that heat. I think some year it's going to happen. Maybe it's this year. Maybe it's not. We've got great pacing for that one too. So they'll come through 1,000 somewhere between 2:30 and 2:32, depending on if they go with the pacer
For Heat
or not.
2 is crazy.
So yeah, I mean it's nuts. But it's really cool to see. And yes, I think someday there's going to be an athlete who breaks 4 minutes from that second heat. And honestly, it might be a better setup someday than Heat 1. If you're going for it for the first time, I think getting overextended, being at 1200 at 257, if you're trying to break 4 minutes for the first time is really fast, and you run the risk of blowing up. So if you're a little bit patient and you're ready to do it, and you're 3 flat, 301, 302, you're okay. As long as your legs are still there and you can close, then that's it. But the pacing for Heat 1 might get a little bit too hot if that's your goal to break 4. So not saying that both the races are awesome opportunities to do it, and if not this year, it's coming someday.
Yeah, 2:57.62 doesn't sound like the best way to run sub 4, but crazier things have been done. So.
I've seen it done, but it's not the way that I would choose to do it or
slow down.
Coach to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A few final questions for you. We've talked about some important races, but we haven't talked about the main event, the most important race, the reason people fly out to this meet, the mascot race. Hot takes on this.
Oh, yeah.
And every year there seems to be some debate around the rules. Has there been some clarification around what you can wear? This is always a fun time.
Well, that's the beauty of the mascot race. There are no rules. So, you just come and run. It's something that we see every year. Kids are just wearing the helmet, or, they're wearing spikes and they're wearing the tracksuit. Other than that, my high school mascot, the Hickman Cupie, won a couple of years ago, and the guy was wearing like a giant bobblehead. So that was the highlight of the mascot race. But I think for fun, we'll probably just keep the rules, abstract and let the kids run and have fun. It is a nice comedic break during an otherwise pretty intense night of racing.
Other thing for you that I want to address, can you share about the Athlete in Need kind of program you guys center this meet around, and who is the Athlete in Need this year?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that back, because that really is like the central point of our mission. Our not-for-profit, we're the Festival of Miles Foundation. We raise money for an athlete in need every year. This year's athlete in need is Larry Stone. Larry is a longtime St. Louis runner. He's a member of the St. Louis Track Club, and the St. Louis Track Club has been a sponsor of Festival of Miles since we started. So that organization is super important to where we are today, and Larry is super important to them. And so we're really happy to be able to help Larry in his recovery from cancer. We've been able to raise a little over $25,000 the last couple of years, and Hoka gives us a great budget to be able to just fund the operations of the meet. And so if you're watching online, you'll see a link to donate. If you're in person, you can donate, and every dollar of ticket sales, so tickets are $10, every dollar from that, every cent from that is going to Larry, to help him as he fights cancer. So, thank you to everybody who comes through the door, and pays $10. We have really high profile coaches every year that say, "Hey, do I need a ticket?" And so I say, "Yeah, you got to have a ticket for this one, and here's why." And it's a great conversation to have. We're stoked that we're able to help Larry and to help the other athletes in need that we've been able to help since I guess this is our 16th year.
Wow.
So
Incredible.
it's a humbling thing to be able to do. We feel like we're helping Larry, we're helping an athlete in need, and hopefully we're doing something positive for the running community too.
Can most definitely attest to that. Tim, final question for you. For those who are interested, I hope they would have been by this point of listening to me rave about the meet throughout the years, but let's say they'd never heard of it. They went in this conversation. They either want to attend, whether that's flying from Europe to come in, or they want to watch. Can you tell people more info about where they can find out about the meet to come out, or in the case for most of the people out there, probably tune in online and watch most definitely history happen?
Yep. So all of the information for Festival of Miles can be found at stlfestivalofmiles.com. We are super lucky that we have a free broadcast courtesy of Runner Space. So no matter where you are in the world, you can watch HOKA Festival of Miles for free. And if you are close, then you can come out and watch in person. Even if you're not, there will be people like Connell coming from across the country to pay their $10 and come and watch the meet. But yeah, and if you're an athlete and you haven't heard of Festival Miles before and you're interested, you can reach me at info@stlfestivalofmiles.com. So here to help, here to bring the best track meet that we can to St. Louis, and we're really excited for it on June 5.
Amazing. Tim, thank you so much for the time. Thank you for all of your contributions to the sport, and I'll see you in 13 days, I think, at this point, ready to watch history thrown down yet again at St. Louis University Track.
It's coming fast.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you for all you're doing to promote us. Appreciate it.